Well, I think we're both trying to go get 3 points. We tried the same thing this weekend. It was good to at least get 3 points out of 2 games on the road, and so we're chasing points obviously. I think the rivalry is already there, and we're both teams are fighting anytime we get together, so it's part of it.
In the last matchup, I think you just talked about how physical that match was, and maybe some guys didn't seem as prepared for it. I'm just curious, where's the message for the way and the expectation for the way they're going to play, even though the coaching changed since you last met?
I think every game that we've played against each other, they've all been physical. They all have been, and I don't expect this to be any different.
And then just player availability stuff.
There's some guys that might be available. Again, I said this in my last call, because I think we played 9. This will be our 9th game in 32 days. So you're playing like every 3 point some, days a game. 24, 48 hours can be a big difference. And so we'll see. There's a couple guys we just left inside to do stuff in the gym, but they might be available for tomorrow. And then obviously we have a full week, which we haven't had in a while, to kind of give some guys some rest and then get prepared in a meaningful way for the next game starting Leagues Cup.
You've been under the gun with not being able to get real practices in, just having to do quick regions and small practices. How proud are you of how the team's been able to respond in that cycle?
It's been good. I think one of the things that helped was in the last 3 matches that we played, the same formation was used in each, so that makes it a little bit easier. So you're already kind of indoctrinated into sort of the concepts that you're trying to get across. That part was there. I do think that we missed a few guys in the last game. Just we missed quality, some quality in the last game in certain areas. I think hopefully we'll have some back for this next, but I think the guys have been good, and I think they've also dealt with the energy level, part of it. They've worked through it, and for the most part, everybody's given a pretty good contribution to the team on a physical side. Some maybe could be better, quality on the field, but sometimes it's going to happen. But I think. All in all, I think we handled the number of games pretty well, but it's not finished yet. We got this game tomorrow.
And what do you expect from St. Louis? I mean, they get a team that's struggling, but they have some new reinforcements in. What do you expect?
I think they're a lot of who they were before. It's hard to all of a sudden just change everything in a short period of time. They'll bring a lot of energy. They'll fight for everything. It'll be very competitive from that perspective, and I think you always have to be up for that match when it comes to games like that. When it comes to intensity and the tenacity of a game.
Speaking of them bringing in reinforcements, the window's open. Is there anything you can talk about Sporting's efforts?
I mean, I'd say that we're progressing forward in a meaningful way on couple situations, but the first is to try to get the first one done and then kind of see if you can do something from there. Like I said to you before, we don't have a ton of flexibility in this window. We're trying to make some more if possible, but it's also going to require some other things to happen. But we're for sure trying to get one piece done now if we can. As I said before, there's a lot of flexibility more towards the end of the season than anything else, because that's when all contracts are up. That doesn't mean that every single guy is gone or anything like that. It just means that we have more flexibility at that time to make decisions. But there'll be somebody signed in this window for sure, hopefully sooner, because of obviously they're going to have a tough time being available for the first 2 games of Leagues Cup. But I'd like to make sure that they're available for any of the games, because it would be great to have them playing a few games before we get to the final, league push and then the semifinals of Open Cup.
Peter, with this amount of games that you had in this short amount of time and the availability and of the players, for you as a coach, what's the priority that you put when you're planning
just health and recovery. Like it can the health is obviously the players has to be available from a health perspective, but then after that, it's whether or not they're recharged or recovered from the last game. And, and I think you also have to make a decision. Is it better for a guy, like let's say a guy can only play 45 minutes or 60? Do you start him? Do you bring him as a sub? Like what? Those are the things that you're taking in consideration. Where can they have the biggest impact? And then sometimes you're trying to manage the game in a way that that, hey, maybe you might in the first half might be a little more defensive. In the second half, you might be a little more offensive to take it to another team if you can and have those weapons for the second half. So it some of it depends on where you're at and who you're playing, who the opponent is.
And I know the team's focus on St. Louis tomorrow, but can you just give us that first overview and what's the target for League Cup?
I mean, I think we'll talk about that a little bit more next week, but I don't think that we would take it any different than we did last year. I mean, I actually thought that we were really good in League Cup last year. So, some unfortunate things happened. We should have won in Cincinnati. That would have put us in a different place. But I feel that we'll take it. We'll take it as serious as we did last year for sure.
We didn't see Marino Shanice and all the travels with some of the injuries. Might have been helpful. Just curious what his situation is.
Well, we had 21 guys on the trip with us. We had 21 players with us, and then what happened was a bunch of guys did get injured at that point. So,
was he on that trip with you guys?
No, he wasn't. No,
Why was it
just
coach's decision?
yeah.
And then I saw Logan was part of that group. Just how close is he to playing and getting minutes back?
He's right there. He's right there. He's. I would say that he's like really, 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 really close. So it's good. Yeah.
This weekend close?
Could be available. Could be.
I know St. Louis would not like to see him. Changing the subject though, the new MLS rules are in effect now for the roster. Just now that they're official, is there anything you can add to what you said before?
You mean around the rules or?
Around the rules.
I mean, I think it gives more flexibility to the roster for sure. I think it's a little bit difficult for teams to take advantage of some of the aspects of those rules now. You probably have more in the start of it, like, start of a season than you do in the middle, unless that could be different for next summer, because once it's in place, the fact that it was coming in and it came in basically after the primary window this year. But I think going forward, it gives you a lot of flexibility. I think the injection of if you went 2 DPs and 4 U22s and you can get $2 million of GAM injected into your team could be an interesting way to look at your roster. But that can be a little deceiving too. I mean, don't it's not like all of a sudden you got this extra $2 million, because what happens is that means you'll have more TAM guys that you'll have to buy down to get them to be max salary guys. So you could go through that $2 million really quickly. But it for sure gives you more flexibility.
I know when we talked before, you're trying to work on the strategy, how you're going to approach the next few windows, and then with these roster rules, and 2 DPs, 3 DPs, 3 or 4 U22. Have you finalized those plans, or getting close?
Yeah, I don't think it's ever going to be like you're going to say, hey, we're going to do this. It might be we're going to do this for this window, and then we might be able to adapt and adjust or it might be adjust it in the next window to take advantage of something that we have that's going on with one of our contracts, or could be something that's going on with just with an individual player or what have you. So I think that will, you're gonna continue to adapt and adjust that to each window. I don't think it's going to be the other way unless you make a huge commitment, because as you guys know, we have 2 DPs that could be high TAM guys, and that's where our flexibility is at the moment.
And then just looking at the possibility of 4 U22s versus the 3 and the allocation money, how successful has the U22s been in the league in general? Because I mean, I would think that if you're going a lot of U22s, you might want to be in the business of turning around and selling them, but not a lot of those guys have been sold yet.
Yeah, statistically speaking, that's true. I would also say that midfielders are more successful than any other position that's coming into U22. You know, again, there's different positions that have had success and haven't. But I also think that it's the first go around for all the teams in the league, and I think that it'll probably change a little bit more. But you're correct. I think what would happen would be, but that's why it's over time, right? This was the first iteration of it. Once you sort of get your pipeline going, you might sell a player, but you already have another one ready to come in. And that's where you have to kind of be way out in front of it to take advantage of it, I think. And I think the objective would be to build, look, I think it all sounds good. Hey, we're going to, bring this guy in, we're going to develop him a couple of years, and then we're going to sell him, right? Do I think that's realistic? Yes. Do I think that's realistic with all 3 or 4 of them? No. Because I think along the way, what you're going to have is you're going to have somebody's not going to work. I mean, that's part of sports, right? Something's not going to work. And then there's other ones where maybe the player and the club, maybe they're not interested in selling that player, and maybe he wants to stay here and he wants to continue to compete and help the team win. So there's going to be a lot of different cases, but I do think that in the next iteration of these players coming in, I think it's going to be a different demand on those guys, because I think we've already been through one cycle of it, and I think that's going to change it a lot.